Good evening, and welcome back. Tonight, I'll be sharing 3 true roadside stranger stories, quiet, unsettling encounters that happened far from city lights, on lonely highways where the night never ends. These are tales whispered by truckers, travelers, and those who drive alone after dark. Stories that remind us how easily a calm road can turn into something else. So, get comfortable. Let the sound of the road lull you. And as you close your eyes, remember, sometimes, the most haunting things are the ones waiting just beyond the headlights. Let's begin. Our first story takes place on a quiet Midwestern highway. A long, dark stretch of road where the only sound is the hum of tires and the whisper of the wind through empty fields. One man's late-night drive home turned into something he's never been able to forget. This is the Roadside Stranger. Story 1. The Roadside Stranger. I've always believed the loneliest roads are the ones that remember things. You can drive them 100 times and still feel something lingering there. Quiet but present, like the air itself is holding its breath. The road I'm talking about runs between 2 small towns in the Midwest, a stretch of asphalt that twists through cornfields and open plains. At night, there's nothing but the soft hum of your tires and the whisper of wind moving through the fields. I used to drive it every night. Back then, I worked late shifts at a manufacturing plant just outside of town. My drive home took me along that road 22 miles of near darkness. The headlights from my car barely touched the edges of the world, and everything beyond that light felt like it belonged to another time. It's been years since I quit that job. But there's one night I've never managed to forget. And even now, when I think of it, I can't still feel the hum of the engine, the faint smell of rain on the air, and that cold, quiet presence sitting just outside my line of sight. It was early spring. The fields were still dead and brown from winter. The factory had let us out late, something about an equipment delay. I remember checking my watch. 12:47 a.m. I was tired, my eyes burning from the long shift. The road was empty. Not a single pair of headlights behind me. None ahead. Just me, the asphalt, and that endless black sky. I'd driven maybe 10 miles when I saw it, something small and pale on the shoulder of the road. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer or a stray dog. But as I slowed down, my headlights caught it fully. It was a person. A man, standing just off the white line. He wasn't waving or moving. He was just standing there, still as stone, facing the opposite direction of traffic. I slowed the car to a crawl. The man didn't look back. He wore dark jeans, a jacket that looked too thin for the night's chill, and no hat. His hands hung at his sides. Something about him didn't feel right. It wasn't that he looked threatening, he didn't. It was the stillness, like he didn't belong there, like the night had made him out of shadow and wind. I rolled my window down halfway. "Hey, you okay?" I called out. He didn't move. For a moment, I thought maybe he was hurt or drunk. I eased the car forward a few feet and leaned out a bit more. "Do you need help?" That's when he turned around. Slowly. Too slowly. Like someone remembering how to move. His face was pale, washed out by my headlights. He looked maybe mid-30s, clean-shaven, but his expression was blank. No confusion, no fear, just emptiness. And his eyes, they didn't catch the light. You know how a person's eyes reflect when you hit them with headlights? His didn't. They were dull, almost gray. Something deep inside me tightened. Every part of me wanted to put the car in drive and leave. But something else, some quiet, human instinct made me stay. I asked again, "Are you hurt? Do you need a ride?" The man just stood there. Then, finally, he nodded once. I hesitated. It wasn't like me to pick up strangers, especially not that late, but the road was cold, and he didn't look like he had anywhere to go. "All right," I said, unlocking the door. "Hop in." He walked toward the passenger side without a word. His movements were strange to deliberate, like he was focusing on every step. He opened the door, slid inside, and shut it softly behind him. The smell that came in with him was faint but sharp, like damp earth, or something that had been left out in the rain too long. He didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, hands folded neatly in his lap. "Where you headed?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He paused. Then he said, quietly, "Home." Something about the way he said it sent a ripple through me. "All right," I said. "Where's home?" He didn't answer. I glanced at him, but his face hadn't changed. No expression, no movement, just that blank stare. I tried again. "Which direction?" "I can't drop you off if you tell me where you live." After a few seconds, he spoke again. "Down the road." That was all. I wanted to ask more, but something about the silence in the car stopped me. The only sounds were the engine and the faint hiss of the tires. We drove for a few miles. The man didn't move or speak. Every now and then, I'd glance over, and each time it felt like his face was slightly different, like the shadows were shifting across it in strange ways. Finally, he said, "You shouldn't drive this road at night." His voice was low, almost flat, but the words made my skin crawl. "Why's that?" I asked. He turned his head slightly toward me, and for the first time, I saw his eyes clearly. They weren't gray, they were pale blue, but the kind of blue that looks empty, like there's nothing behind it. "Because," he said, "it remembers things." I laughed nervously, trying to lighten the mood. "Yeah, it's creepy out here. Long stretches like this get in your head." He didn't smile, didn't blink, just kept staring at me. Then, in that same calm voice, he said, "You passed someone back there." I froze. "What?" He looked forward again. "On the side of the road." "A woman?" "You didn't stop." I shook my head. "I didn't see anyone." "She was there," he said softly. "She was waiting." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't know what to say. The road stretched ahead endlessly, the white lines flashing like a heartbeat. After a long silence, he spoke again. "Do you believe in accidents?" His voice was different now, lower, like it came from somewhere far away. "Yeah," I said carefully. "I mean, things happen." He nodded slowly. "They do. But sometimes the road decides. Sometimes it keeps things." He turned his head toward me again, and this time, his face looked wrong. I don't know how else to explain it. The shadows seemed deeper around his eyes, his skin paler. And for a second, just a second, I thought I saw water dripping down his neck, like he'd just come out of a river. My heart started pounding. I pulled in a slow breath and said, "You okay, man?" He didn't answer. Then he whispered, "I didn't mean to hit her." The air in the car went cold. I turned my head, but his face was hidden in shadow. "What did you say?" He didn't repeat it. A mile later, I saw movement in the road ahead. Something white, standing at the edge of my headlights. At first, I thought it was a deer again, but as I got closer, I saw hair, a dress. A woman. She was standing exactly like he had been, still, facing away, one arm hanging loose by her side. My breath caught. When I turned to the man in the passenger seat, he was gone. The seat was empty. The door was closed, still locked from the inside. No sound, no movement. I slammed the brakes, the tires screeching on the asphalt. The car stopped just a few feet from the figure on the road. But when I looked again, she was gone too. The road was empty, just the wind moving through the fields. I sat there for a long time, my hands trembling against the wheel. I don't remember how long, maybe a few minutes, maybe more. Eventually, I forced myself to drive the rest of the way home, eyes fixed on the yellow lines, too afraid to look anywhere else. The next morning, I told myself it had been exhaustion. Maybe I'd nodded off for a second, imagined it all. But later that day, curiosity got the better of me. I drove back out to that stretch of road, broad daylight this time. The air was cool, the sky wide and blue. There was nothing there, no sign of anyone, no footprints, no broken branches. But when I stopped near where I'd seen the man, I noticed something strange. A small wooden cross on the shoulder of the road. The kind people put up after car accidents. The wood was old, weathered gray. The name carved into it was nearly worn away, but I could still make out part of it. Anna. I stood there for a long while, the wind whispering through the dry grass. Later, I asked a guy I knew from the factory about it. He'd lived in the area his whole life. He said there'd been a crash there about 15 years earlier. A couple young, just married, had lost control one rainy night. The car had gone into the ditch. The woman died instantly. The husband survived but disappeared a week later. No one ever found him. Some said he couldn't live with it. Others said he walked into the fields and never came out. When I told my coworker about the man I'd seen, he got quiet. Then he said, "You're not the first person to pick him up." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" He looked uneasy. "Every few years, someone says they saw a man out there, standing on the shoulder. Always around midnight. They pick him up, drive a while, then he disappears. Some say he talks about an accident. Some say he just sits there quiet." I didn't tell him the rest. Didn't tell him about what the man had said, the part about the road remembering things. It's been almost 10 years now, and I still drive that stretch sometimes, mostly during the day. But every once in a while, I find myself out there at night again. The last time was a few months ago. It was late, maybe 1 in the morning, and the sky was heavy with clouds. As I came around one of the long curves, my headlights caught something on the shoulder. The figure. This time, I didn't slow down. I didn't stop. But as I passed, I glanced in the rear-view mirror. For just a heartbeat, I saw him. Standing there, watching me. And next to him, just barely visible in the reflection, was another figure, smaller, in a pale dress. They were holding hands. Sometimes, when the wind's right and the road is quiet, I swear I can still hear the sound of someone breathing just beside me in the car. Maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe it's the road remembering. Or maybe it's something else entirely. Whatever it is, I've learned to keep my eyes forward and my hands steady on the wheel. Because on that lonely stretch of highway, Not everything you pass is meant to be left behind. If you've ever driven through the dead of night, you know that silence can feel alive, like the road itself is listening. Our next story comes from a truck driver who's spent a lifetime crossing empty highways, but one stretch of road changed him forever. Somewhere near mile marker 81, on a route drivers now call the quiet stretch, he saw something that still follows him to this day. This is the man by mile marker 81. Story 2, The Man by Mile Marker 81. There's a highway that cuts through the western part of my state, an old two-lane road that runs straight for miles before it dips into a low stretch of forest and farmland. Locals call it Highway 7, but truckers and night drivers have another name for it. They call it the Quiet Stretch. Because no matter what time of year it is, no matter how strong the wind or how heavy the rain, once you hit that section near mile marker 81, the world goes still. No sound from the engine, no crickets, no wind, just silence. Like the earth itself is holding its breath. I've been driving long-haul trucks for most of my adult life. There's not much that unsettles me on the road. You see strange things when you drive through the night: people, lights, animals that vanish in the beams of your headlights. You learn not to think too hard about it. But there's one thing I saw on that quiet stretch that I can't forget. Something I've never been able to explain. It happened in late October of 2009. I was hauling a load of steel beams from Kansas City down to Amarillo. The dispatch had gone late, so by the time I hit the open road, it was already close to midnight. The weather was dry but cold, the kind of night where the stars look sharp enough to cut through the sky. The radio was fading in and out, so I drove mostly in silence. I'd been on the road for a few hours when I passed mile marker 79, meaning I was getting close to that quiet stretch people talked about. I'd heard the stories from other drivers how radios would go dead, headlights would dim for a moment, and sometimes, you'd see a man walking along the shoulder. Most said he was harmless, just some drifter who liked to scare people. But the details never matched. Some said he wore a coat, others said he was in a t-shirt, even in the dead of winter. Some said he had no face at all. I didn't believe any of it. Stories like that spread fast on the road, and truckers love to spook each other. Still, when I passed mile marker 80, I noticed the silence. The hum of my engine was still there, but everything else had stopped. No sound of tires on asphalt, no chirp of insects, no whisper of wind. Just a hollow quiet that pressed against the cab. I remember turning down the volume on the city radio, even though nothing was playing. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't want to break the silence. Then, up ahead, I saw someone on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a reflection, a trick of the headlights, but as I got closer, I saw the outline of a man standing near the guardrail. He was facing the woods, not the road, his back turned toward me. Something about that struck me as odd. Usually, when you see someone walking that late, they face traffic. It's safer. But this man just stood there, still as stone, like he was looking at something in the trees. As I got closer, the light from my headlights fell over him. He was tall, thin, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. His hair was short, maybe brown or black, I couldn't tell. He didn't move when I passed. Didn't flinch at the sound of 18 wheels roaring by just a few feet away. I checked my side mirror as I went by, and for a split second, I swear he turned his head toward me. It was quick, barely more than a flicker, but I saw his face. and it wasn't right. The light caught his skin, pale and smooth, but where his eyes should have been, there was only shadow. I blinked, looked again, but the mirror showed nothing. The road behind me was empty. A few miles later, I pulled into a rest stop to stretch my legs and get some air. The place was empty except for an old pickup parked near the far end. The vending machines glowed faintly in the dark. I grabbed a coffee from the machine and leaned against the side of my truck, staring out at the highway. That's when I saw it again. A man, standing by the shoulder of the road. Not close, maybe 100 yards off, but I could see him clearly under the pale light of the moon. It was the same figure, same stance, facing the woods. Only this time, he was closer to the rest area. I watched for a good minute, expecting him to move, to walk away, something, but he didn't. Just stood there, motionless. A cold breeze swept across the lot, and for the first time that night, I realized how quiet everything was. Even here. No bugs, no distant cars, just that silence. I don't know why I called out, but I did. "Hey, you alright?" My voice sounded too loud in the still air. The man didn't move. Something about the way he stood, it felt wrong, like he wasn't really there, just watching something I couldn't see. I started walking toward him, slow at first, then faster. But as I got closer, my headlights from the truck flickered. The lights dimmed for just a second, and when they came back, the man was gone. No footsteps, no sound. Just gone. The only thing left was that hollow quiet. I didn't sleep that night. I kept driving. By the time dawn broke, I'd convinced myself it was fatigue, the trick of light and exhaustion. Long-haul drivers see weird things all the time. But 2 weeks later, I heard something on the CB. A driver going north on Highway 7 said he'd seen a man by the woods near mile marker 81. He described him the same way I'd seen him: dark jacket, jeans, facing the trees. Only he'd stopped. He said he pulled over to check on the guy, thinking he might be hurt or lost. When he got out and called to him, the man turned around, and there was nothing where his face should have been. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth skin, like clay before it's shaped. The driver swore his truck lights died right after that. When they came back, the figure was gone. Most of the other guys laughed it off, said he was pulling our leg. But I didn't laugh, because I'd seen him too. A few months passed. Winter came and went. I didn't drive that route again until the following spring. It was early morning, around 2 a.m., when I hit the quiet stretch again. The same heavy stillness fell over everything. The air felt colder, thicker. I kept my eyes on the road, trying not to think about the stories. Then, just as I passed mile marker 81, my headlights caught something metal glinting in the grass. The car. It was old, maybe from the 70s, half buried in weeds and rust. Looked like it had been there a long time. But here's the thing: I'd driven that road dozens of times before, and I'd never seen it. Not once. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled over, parked on the shoulder, and grabbed my flashlight. The car was about 20 yards from the road, twisting crooked in the ditch. The windshield was shattered, the frame twisted. There were old tire tracks leading into the mud, but they faded fast. I walked closer. The air smelled like rain and iron. There was no license plate, no sign of anyone inside, just torn upholstery and rust. but when I shined the light through the back window, something caught my eye. A small wooden cross, tied with twine, wedged between the seats. I reached in to pick it up. That's when I heard it, the faint tapping sound from the woods. 3 slow knocks. Pause. Then 3 more. I froze, flashlight trembling in my hand. "Hello?" I called. No answer. I turned toward the trees. The light barely reached the edge of them, but I saw something movement. Someone standing between the trunks. It was him. The man. Same jacket, same stillness. He was facing me this time. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could feel it, the same emptiness, that hollow presence that didn't belong in the world. And then I heard a whisper, soft as breath. "Don't forget me." The flashlight flickered. My truck lights went out completely. When they came back, he was gone. The woods were empty. I ran back to my rig, heart pounding, and didn't stop until I was 50 miles down the road. Later that week, I mentioned it to a local mechanic while getting a tire fixed in a small town near the route. When I told him where I'd stopped, his face went pale. He said, "You mean by the wreck? That old car?" I nodded. He sighed and said, "That's from a crash back in '87. Young couple. The car went off the road during a storm. The woman died right away. The man got out, went to get help, but no one ever found him. Folks say he never left." He looked at me then, serious as stone. "They say he stands by the road, looking for her." After that, I avoided Highway 7 as much as I could. But you can't stay away forever when the routes change. In 2014, I had to take that road again. This time, it was raining. The sky was black and heavy, the kind of rain that comes down in sheets. As I neared mile marker 81, I slowed down. Lightning flashed, and for a split second, I saw it again, the old car in the ditch, gleaming wet in the storm. And beside it, 2 figures. A man and a woman, standing hand in hand in the rain. I blinked, and they were gone. It's been over 10 years since the first night. Every now and then, I still hear news stories from drivers, people seeing a figure near the woods, or feeling their radio die near mile marker 81. Some say the man doesn't walk alone anymore. They say there's a woman beside him now. And if you slow down, if you roll down your window, you might hear them whisper, asking for a ride. Or maybe, just maybe, asking to be remembered. Not every haunting happens in darkness. Sometimes, it hides inside the rainstorm, when headlights blur, and the road shimmers like glass. Our final story takes us to the desert, along a forgotten section of old Route 66, where a lone traveler met a woman waiting in the rain. This is The Woman in the Rain. Story 3, The Woman in the Rain. There's a long stretch of desert highway that runs between Barstow and Needles, California. Locals call it the Old 66, though most people avoid it now. The new interstate runs parallel to it, faster, smoother, brighter. But the old road still lies there, cracked and forgotten, winding through dust and sagebrush. If you drive it at night, you'll notice something odd. Your cell signal fades, the radio turns to static, and the air grows still, like the desert itself is listening. They say that's where she appears. The Woman in the Rain. I didn't believe the stories at first. But that was before the night I met her. It was June of 2016, and I was heading back from a delivery in Flagstaff. I'd been on the road for nearly 12 hours. tired and a little wired from too much gas station coffee. I usually took the interstate, but that night there'd been an accident ahead, and traffic was backed up for miles. So, I decided to take the old highway instead. It added an hour to the trip, but I didn't mind. I remember the sky that night moonless and heavy with clouds. You could smell rain on the wind, even though it hadn't started yet. The first few miles were fine. The road was cracked but empty. The world felt vast and quiet. My headlights carved out a small funnel of light through the dark. Then, somewhere near mile marker 142, the rain began. It wasn't a soft drizzle that came all at once, the curtain of water that blurred the world into gray. I slowed down, wipers thumping back and forth in a steady rhythm. The desert, usually bone dry, came alive with sound, the hiss of rain on the sand, the rush of water in the ditches. And then I saw her. A woman, standing by the side of the road. She wore a pale dress that clung to her in the rain, and her hair was plastered against her face. She wasn't moving, wasn't waving, just standing there, soaked to the bone, her head tilted slightly downward. I slowed the truck to a crawl. At first, I thought she might have been in an accident or abandoned. There were no cars around, no lights anywhere. I rolled down the window a few inches. "Hey, are you okay?" She didn't answer. Her skin looked ghostly pale under the headlights, her arms hanging loose at her sides. I hesitated. I've seen strange things on the road before, people who wander, lost, dazed, but something about her made me uneasy. Still, I couldn't just leave her there in the rain. I pulled over, leaned across the seat, and opened the passenger door. "Get in," I said. "You'll catch your death out there." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, without a word, she stepped forward and climbed in. The air inside the cab turned cold. Not just cool cold, like the temperature had dropped 20 degrees in seconds. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, her dress dark against the seat. Her face was hidden by her hair, but I could see her lips. They were pale, almost blue. I tried to make small talk, my voice sounding too loud in the stillness. "Where you headed?" "Nothing." "You live around here?" After a few seconds, she spoke softly, like her voice was coming from far away. "Down the road." I nodded, pretending that made sense. "All right. You'll tell me when to stop?" She didn't answer. We drove in silence. The rain hammered the windshield, the wipers clicking back and forth like a metronome. Every so often, I'd glance at her. She was staring out the side window, eyes unfocused, lips barely moving as if she were whispering to herself. I turned the radio on to break the tension. Static. I flipped the dial. Every station. Nothing but white noise. That's when she said it so quietly I almost didn't catch it. "He didn't stop." I looked over. "What?" Her head turned slightly toward me. "He didn't stop. He just kept driving." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like she was talking about something that had already happened long ago. I felt a chill run through me. Who didn't stop? But she didn't answer. Instead, she lifted one hand and pointed ahead, out through the windshield. "Right there." I followed her finger. Up ahead, the road curved gently to the left, a low dip where rainwater pooled in the ditch. Then the headlights caught at something gleaming in the mud. The car. It was half sunk in the ditch, covered in rust and weeds, like it had been there for years. One of the windows was shattered, The roof caved in. I slowed down. The woman beside me sat perfectly still, eyes locked on the wreck. "Was that your car?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. The rain fell harder, drumming against the glass. I felt the truck's engine vibrate under my hands, the air inside the cab thick with something heavy, like sorrow. Then she turned to me fully. Her face was pale and water-streaked. Her eyes dark, bottomless met mine. And she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was sad, almost knowing. "Thank you for stopping," she whispered. Before I could say anything, there was a flash of lightning so bright it turned the world white. And when it faded she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. No sound, no trace of water where she'd been sitting. Just the faint smell of rain and something else, something faintly metallic, like blood and rust. I slammed the brakes and threw the truck into park, my heart hammering in my chest. I got out, rain soaking me instantly, and looked around. No sign of her. Just the old car, half buried in mud. When I shined my flashlight inside, I froze. There was a woman in the driver's seat. Or rather, what was left of her. The body was little more than bones wrapped in tatters of fabric the same pale color as the dress the woman in my truck had worn. On the dashboard, half buried under debris, was a faded photograph. A young woman, smiling. Her face was the same one I'd just seen. I called the sheriff's office from a payphone at a gas station 20 miles down the road. When they came out, they confirmed what I already knew. The car had crashed over 20 years ago. Heavy rain, poor visibility. The driver had lost control and gone into the ditch. They said she died instantly. No one found her for weeks. I didn't tell them about picking her up. Didn't mention her voice, or the way she'd said, "He didn't stop." Because the sheriff had mentioned something else. A man had seen her once before. Back in the 90s, a motorist reported a woman standing in the rain near mile marker 142. He'd thought she was a hitchhiker, but when he slowed down to help, she vanished. That was before they found the wreck. After that, other drivers said they'd seen her too. Always during rainstorms. Always standing in the same spot. Some say she's waiting for the driver who didn't stop. Others say she's just lost, caught between one world and the next, reliving that night over and over again. It's been nearly a decade since that night, and I've driven that stretch of road 100 times since. Most nights it's quiet, just the hum of the tires and the whisper of desert wind. But when it rains, really rains, I can't help but glance at the side of the road. And sometimes, for just a second, I see her. A pale figure in the downpour. Standing still, head bowed. And every time, I keep driving. Because I've learned something about that road. Sometimes, when the storm is heavy enough and the world turns gray, the past comes back to walk beside you. And if you stop, if you roll down your window, if you speak, you might not be driving alone anymore. The desert remembers. Every road does. And on lonely nights, when the rain begins to fall, she still waits by the ditch, watching, listening for someone kind enough to stop. If you're still awake, thank you for joining me tonight. Each of these encounters came from real people, travelers who swear what they saw was true. Whether they met lost souls, echoes of memories, or something that roads themselves remember, only the night knows for sure. If you enjoy these roadside stranger stories true, don't forget to subscribe, leave a light on, and come back next time for more calm horror to fall asleep to. Until then, drive safe. Keep your eyes on the road. And if you see someone standing by the highway, in the quiet hours between midnight and dawn, maybe it's best not to stop.